Russia's sudden strike on Kyiv was not merely a military maneuver. It was a calculated political message aimed at destabilizing Ukraine and signaling Russia's enduring reach. Yet, what followed was not just a defensive response. It was an immediate and ruthless counterstrike that exposed the vulnerabilities within Russian strategy. Ukraine's retaliation was swift, brutal, and almost surgical in precision, demonstrating how modern warfare is no longer about brute force alone, but about instant intelligence, cyber coordination, and tactical unpredictability. The shockwaves of this engagement reverberated far beyond the battlefield. Global markets shivered, energy prices surged, and alliances strained under the pressure of immediate crisis. Every missile fired, every drone launched, carries both economic and political consequences, reminding us that wars today are fought simultaneously in the skies, on the ground, and through global financial networks. Russia's attack, while intended to intimidate, inadvertently highlighted the resilience and strategic acumen of Ukraine, challenging Western assumptions about power projection and signaling a new chapter in asymmetric warfare. Observers worldwide were forced to reconsider the dynamics of military escalation, the cost of aggression, and the unpredictability of retaliation in a hyper-connected global landscape. Amid this chaos, the Ukrainian strategy revealed a deeper lesson. The fight for sovereignty is entwined with economic resilience and international diplomacy. Ukraine leveraged not just weapons but information, alliances, and rapid mobilization of both conventional and unconventional forces to transform a moment of vulnerability into an opportunity to assert strategic dominance. The attack and its counter were a vivid demonstration of how 21st century conflicts intertwine political will, technological superiority, and the narrative battles waged in media and public perception. The world watched as Kyiv survived not merely because of military might, but because of agility, intelligence, and the psychological power of unexpected retaliation. This conflict serves as a chilling reminder that in today's global order, the speed and decisiveness of response can redefine outcomes before traditional structures can even react. Russia's assault on Kyiv cannot be understood simply as a conventional military campaign. It was a calculated act of political theater designed to send messages far beyond the battlefield. From Moscow's perspective, the attack was intended to project power, intimidate Ukraine, and signal to the world that Russia retains the capability to influence the post-Soviet sphere and global geopolitical calculations. Every movement of troops, every missile fired, every strike on infrastructure carried layers of meaning. It was not just about territorial gain, but about asserting dominance, shaping perceptions, and testing the resolve of international actors. Political signaling in this context operates on multiple levels simultaneously. To the Ukrainian government, it is a warning, a threat to undermine their confidence and political stability. To Russian citizens, it is a demonstration of strength, often framed through domestic media as a projection of national pride, and to the West, it is a challenge, a reminder that geopolitical calculations cannot ignore Moscow's ambitions and its willingness to use force. This attack also exposes the intrinsic link between military actions and economic, political messaging. By striking Kyiv, Russia hoped to create chaos that would destabilize local governance, create panic among civilians, and ultimately force Ukraine into concessions, or at least into a reactive posture. But more subtly, these operations were designed to pressure Western alliances, to test NATO's unity, and to signal potential costs for countries that intervene or impose sanctions. In this sense, each military action is doubled as a political negotiation, occurring without formal diplomacy, but with consequences that echo through international capitals. The optics of the attack, the timing, the choice of targets, the intensity, are all carefully curated to send signals. Furthermore, Russia's attack is a modern lesson in how states use war to construct narratives about power and authority. It is not merely physical destruction, but symbolic action meant to manipulate perceptions, both internally and externally. Kyiv was chosen not only because of strategic importance, but also because of its symbolic value as the capital of a sovereign nation defying Moscow's influence. The streets, buildings, and public spaces targeted become more than military objectives. They are instruments of psychological and political signaling. In this framework, the military operation and political messaging are inseparable, intertwined in a complex strategy designed to achieve objectives far beyond immediate battlefield outcomes, reflecting the modern reality that war is as much about perception, influence, and control as it is about territory or weaponry. Ukraine's swift and decisive retaliation against Russia's strike on Kyiv is a stark illustration of how contemporary warfare relies less on sheer numbers or traditional brute force, and more on intelligence, rapid decision-making, and tactical unpredictability. Unlike conventional wars of the past, where large armies could be mobilized over weeks or months, modern conflicts demand instantaneous responses, leveraging real-time information to exploit enemy vulnerabilities. Ukraine's counterattack was not random. It was meticulously planned, relying on an intricate understanding of Russian troop movements, logistical weak points, and the psychological state of their forces. Every maneuver was calculated to maximize disruption, demonstrating that success in the 21st century battlefield hinges on speed, coordination, and adaptability rather than simple firepower. Central to Ukraine's approach was the integration of intelligence with operational execution. Satellites, drones, cyber networks, and human intelligence converged to provide a clear picture of Russian deployments. By acting immediately, Ukraine was able to preempt potential Russian strategies, striking critical targets before Moscow could consolidate its gains. This rapid responsiveness forced Russian forces into defensive postures, undermining their confidence and creating strategic confusion. It is here that the nature of modern warfare becomes clear. Predictability is a liability. Nations that can anticipate and react faster than their adversaries hold a decisive advantage. Ukraine's ability to turn intelligence into immediate, precise action exemplifies how smaller, technologically savvy forces can offset the numerical superiority of larger aggressors. The counterstrike also underscores the psychological dimension of modern combat. Rapid retaliation communicates strength, resolve, and operational competence not only to the enemy, but also to domestic populations and international observers. By demonstrating that attacks will be met instantly and effectively, Ukraine reshapes the battlefield dynamics, signaling that aggression will carry immediate consequences. This unpredictability creates a strategic dilemma for Russia. Any future actions must now account for Ukraine's capacity to respond almost instantaneously, complicating Moscow's decision-making and undermining traditional calculations of risk and reward. Moreover, Ukraine's response highlights the evolution of warfare into a multidimensional contest. Physical strikes are intertwined with cyber operations, real-time media narratives, and economic signaling, all coordinated to achieve maximum effect. The battlefield is no longer confined to geography. It extends into networks, information systems, and global perceptions. Ukraine's counterstrike exemplifies how modern states must operate across these layers simultaneously, using intelligence as both shield and sword, turning reactive defense into proactive disruption. The Russian attack on Kyiv rippled far beyond Ukraine's borders, immediately shaking global economic systems and reminding the world that modern conflicts are never contained within territorial lines. Markets reacted instantly, energy prices spiked, commodity trade became volatile, and stock exchanges waver, reflecting a reality in which geopolitical events have direct financial consequences. Ukraine's crisis illustrated how localized aggression can trigger global uncertainty, revealing the deep interconnectedness between war and the economy. The timing of attacks, the strategic targets, and even the perception of instability can have consequences that multiply exponentially in an age of integrated global finance. Investors, governments, and multinational corporations all respond to the perceived risk of conflict, often before any physical damage has fully materialized. The attack on Kyiv disrupted not only energy pipelines, but also trade corridors, highlighting the fragility of supply chains in a hyper-connected world. European reliance on Russian energy was laid bare, forcing rapid recalibrations of economic and political alliances. Simultaneously, defense industries saw immediate demand surges, while insurance, shipping, and logistics sectors scrambled to assess exposure and risk. The interplay between local military events and global economic activity demonstrates that war has become a multidimensional crisis, intertwining politics, finance, and strategy. Ukraine's situation shows that a single strike on a capital city can trigger cascading effects. Nations adjust policy, markets hedge against uncertainty, and corporations alter operations, all in real time. Financial instruments, currency fluctuations, and investor sentiment become part of the battlefield itself. For example, the instability caused by strikes and counterstrikes drives speculation, which in turn can amplify volatility. Energy shortages and supply disruptions influence inflation worldwide, affecting everything from household expenses to corporate earnings. International lenders, governments, and trade partners are forced to act, often making decisions with both economic and geopolitical implications. In this way, modern warfare is not just a contest of armies, but a contest over global economic leverage, demonstrating how interdependent nations have become. Furthermore, the Ukrainian response magnified this effect. By retaliating quickly and demonstrating operational competence, Ukraine stabilized its internal economy and reassured allies that investments and support were not in vain. The ability of a nation to project resilience amid conflict reassures markets and partners, while any perceived weakness can exacerbate financial instability globally. The battlefield is thus simultaneously economic, political, and military, and the global economic consequences of local aggression reveal that modern conflict is inseparable from global financial networks. The attack on Kyiv and Ukraine's rapid counterstrike vividly illustrate the principles of asymmetric warfare, where smaller, more agile forces exploit the vulnerabilities of larger, conventional militaries. Russia, with its massive army and overwhelming firepower, might seem to hold an automatic advantage, yet the conflict reveals that sheer size does not guarantee control or victory. Ukraine's strategy demonstrates that knowledge, mobility, and adaptive tactics can compensate for numerical inferiority, allowing smaller nations to resist, disrupt, and even frustrate larger aggressors. Asymmetric warfare is fundamentally about exploiting gaps in the opponent's strategy, using intelligence, geography, and speed as force multipliers. In this case, Ukraine's ability to strike quickly, unpredictably, and with precision has forced Russia into defensive postures, highlighting the power of resilience and the ingenuity of smaller states under pressure. This resilience is not only military, but also social, political, and psychological. Ukraine's citizens, government, and military have shown a remarkable capacity to withstand attacks while maintaining national cohesion. Morale becomes a critical factor in asymmetric engagements. A highly motivated, informed, and unified population can offset the technological and numerical advantages of a larger aggressor. Ukraine's decentralized, networked approach to defense, leveraging small mobile units, intelligence sharing, and rapid decision-making, embodies the essence of asymmetric strategy. Each counterstrike or disruption does not merely slow the enemy, but sends a message. Power is not solely measured in tanks or missiles, but in adaptability, coordination, and the ability to leverage every available resource effectively. Moreover, the conflict underscores the evolving nature of asymmetric warfare in the 21st century. Cyber attacks, drone strikes, and unconventional operations complement traditional defense, allowing smaller nations to project power beyond the physical battlefield. These tactics destabilize larger forces by exploiting communication vulnerabilities, creating uncertainty and forcing overextension. Russia's inability to anticipate some of these responses exposes a crucial lesson. Conventional superiority can be neutralized by creativity, agility, and strategic foresight. Finally, Ukraine's resilience in the face of overwhelming aggression demonstrates the political dimension of asymmetric warfare. The determination to defend sovereignty inspires international support, strengthens alliances, and enhances credibility on the global stage. A smaller nation's success in resisting a larger power reshapes narratives about strength, deterrence, and legitimacy. In this conflict, the asymmetric nature of engagement reveals not weakness but strategic advantage, emphasizing that modern military effectiveness depends on adaptability, innovation, and the ability to turn limitations into leverage. Ukraine's response to Russia's attack on Kyiv demonstrates that success in modern conflicts extends far beyond battlefield victories. It requires a sophisticated integration of military, diplomatic, and informational strategies. Military action alone is insufficient in an era where perception, alliances, and global media shape outcomes as much as troop movements. Ukraine's strategy illustrates that a nation under attack can leverage every available dimension of power to amplify effectiveness, project strength, and secure international support. On the military front, rapid counterstrikes, precise targeting, and unconventional tactics have neutralized key Russian operations and disrupted their advance. But these operations are synchronized with broader political objectives, showing that force is a tool, not the sole determinant of strategic success. Diplomatically, Ukraine has mastered the art of framing its defense in global terms. By appealing to international norms, sovereignty, and human rights, Ukraine positions itself as not just a regional actor, but a focal point for Western and global political engagement. This diplomatic outreach ensures continued military aid, economic sanctions on the aggressor, and political pressure that reinforces Ukraine's defensive capabilities. Military gains are thus multiplied through alignment with international partners, creating a web of support that enhances both deterrence and operational freedom. Diplomatic maneuvering transforms local resistance into global leverage, highlighting the multidimensional nature of contemporary conflict. Equally critical is Ukraine's use of information as a strategic weapon. Media campaigns, social networks, and real-time reporting allow Kyiv to shape narratives, influence public perception, and communicate resilience. By controlling the story of the conflict, Ukraine undermines Russian propaganda, strengthens domestic morale, and garners international empathy. Information operations have become a frontline of modern warfare, where perception can determine legitimacy, support, and even economic assistance. Coordinating this with military and diplomatic efforts ensures that each action reverberates far beyond immediate tactical outcomes, reinforcing strategic objectives. Ukraine's approach reflects a profound understanding that modern conflict is inherently multidimensional. Every military maneuver is complemented by diplomatic engagement and narrative control, creating synergy that magnifies impact. By weaving these elements together, Ukraine demonstrates that national resilience and effectiveness are not measured solely by tanks or soldiers, but by the strategic orchestration of all tools of power. In the contemporary battlefield, integrating these layers determines the capacity to survive, retaliate, and ultimately influence the trajectory of a conflict, redefining the rules of engagement for smaller nations confronting larger adversaries. In the context of the Kyiv attack, Ukraine's rapid retaliation highlights how speed and decisiveness have become central to modern warfare, reshaping outcomes long before traditional measures of success. Territory gained or forces defeated can be assessed. In past conflicts, wars were often measured in weeks or months. Today, minutes and hours can determine strategic advantage. Ukraine's instantaneous response to Russian aggression demonstrates that modern states must not only defend but also act proactively to seize the initiative. By striking quickly, Ukraine disrupted Russian momentum, undermined enemy confidence, and forced recalibration of strategies in real time. This immediacy conveys a powerful message. Hesitation is costly, and rapid counteraction can transform apparent vulnerability into strategic leverage. Rapid retaliation affects more than the battlefield. It reshapes perception, both domestically and internationally. For citizens, it demonstrates competence, resolve, and the capacity to protect sovereignty, which bolsters morale and sustains societal cohesion under extreme pressure. For adversaries, it introduces uncertainty, forcing them to account for unexpected responses, thereby reducing their ability to project confidence or maintain planned offensives. On the global stage, rapid and effective counteraction communicates strength to allies and potential partners, encouraging support and reinforcing commitments. In this way, speed in response is both a psychological and strategic tool, altering how power is perceived and leveraged worldwide. Moreover, rapid retaliation magnifies the asymmetric potential of smaller or technologically agile nations. Where numerical inferiority exists, the ability to respond faster than a larger adversary can neutralize the advantages of size and firepower. In Ukraine's case, immediate counterstrikes targeted not just physical assets, but also vulnerabilities in command structures, logistics, and communications, demonstrating that timing and precision can outweigh raw strength. The lesson is clear. Modern warfare prioritizes adaptability, situational awareness, and decision-making speed, making the temporal dimension a decisive factor in determining outcomes. Finally, rapid retaliation emphasizes the multidimensional nature of contemporary conflicts. Military action, cyber operations, information warfare, and political signaling intersect, creating cascading effects that ripple across borders, markets, and public opinion. The ability to respond swiftly transforms engagement into a strategic statement, redefining the rules of conflict by making indecision or delay a liability. In this environment, modern power is measured not only by the ability to strike, but also by the capacity to respond decisively, shaping outcomes, perceptions, and alliances almost instantly, altering the global balance of influence.